All right, well, let me record and get this started and say welcome everybody to 2023 Rut Report, week 4. Today is October 4th. So we're going to kind of talk about and recap what transpired last week and how the season closed out for us here in Idaho. But first off, Larry, how did your hunts go?
Well, we had two great hunts. The first hunt was the first season. A friend of mine had a tag. Uh, we talked to we would talk to some bulls, but only they would only talk when they were leaving in the morning, and they said, "You guys can come join us, but we ain't about to come back there." And so we were talking to bulls all week long, 5 days. Set up a scenario for 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes, decided to move on, and then we started walking. As soon as we started walking, a cow and a calf came beside me 5 yards. So we walked a little further, and I said, "Hey, let's just sit down, listen, see what happens." And it's a cool morning, the first cool morning we've had. And so we sat down, got our packs off. I put my bow down, put my call down, knocked an arrow. And Troy said in a moment, "Hey, Larry." I looked up and a cow was coming my way. And so I picked up my call and picked up my bow and drew, and she kept coming. And we were able to bring a cow home.
Nice.
Yeah,
Good
yeah,
job.
Congrats.
yeah.
That's great.
It was a double lung shot. The arrow went about 30 feet through her on the other side,
Uh,
and she went about 25 yards and expired.
Very nice.
And
Good
then
job.
on the second hunt, Cody, a fellow by the name of Cody, and myself were helping Tom hunt. The second hour of the first day, I said, "Hey, we've heard some bulls. Let's set up a scenario here." So Cody and I got back and did a scenario for 30 minutes, and then we heard Tom cow call. So, but we didn't hear the bow go off. So I slipped up there and looked at Tom. I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, a bull came in and was shaking his head and stomping and peeing all over himself, and he got within 15 yards and I couldn't pull my bow back. I got it halfway back, and then I was pulling it away from my body like this." I said, "Why did you do that?" And he said, "Shit happens." and we came across we walked up on a 7x7, 30 yards away, but he made us before we made him. The bulls they weren't cooperating with us. And we talked to the guys in Unit 53 that were hunting over there. The bulls would talk to them a little bit, but they wouldn't play. And none of them, out of a group of 4, 5, 6 hunters, none of them got an elk. So it was really tough hunting, premature, too hot, and the bulls just weren't very interested at all, and not talking very much at all. The first hunt we saw 16 bears, black bears.
Wow.
Second hunt we saw 8 black bears.
Hmm.
Closest one, 5 yards.
Huh.
Ooh.
So I had 2 great hunts. I was just blessed to be able to go on 2 different hunts.
Well, couple of feedback on that. One is, remember when you set up to do a blind calling scenario, you want to be there for an hour. So,
Yeah.
I've tested it before. I've tested 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, 20 minutes, and it seems like every time that I do it less than an hour, as soon as I stand up and start walking, there's usually an elk coming in nice and silent and we see each other about the same time, and it's usually so.
Yeah.
So that's yeah, an hour on that. The other portion of it, the fact that you did have elk bugling and talking, those would have been great times to, slip in and set up those calling scenarios and tell the stories, for that hour. Because remember, well, a lot of times when you're blind calling, you're not necessarily calling to that elk. You're telling a story. You're creating that image of excitement and curiosity to get them to come in. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, sounds like you had a great time. So, all right. So, how did my season end? So,
Yeah.
Oh,
We
look at
want to
you.
know.
Look at you.
well,
Hi, Lynn.
Larry is these guys have know from the updates I've been doing that new area we decided to hunt. We ended up moving camp 3 times. I mean, it just got ridiculous with people trying to get away from people. I mean, we would park at closed gates and go in and hunt and come back at the end of the day, and there would be 2 more trucks parked behind our truck, and just people everywhere. And so we moved camp the Thursday of the long week, and we started hitting some little pockets, and we started getting into bulls bugling. And in fact, one morning I had a very, very nice bull coming in on a string at 40. He was 42 yards when he sniffed our boot tracks and turned around and went out. All I needed him to do was come around the bush, and he would have been 35 yards from me. So, um, let me let Joel in here real quick. So, um, I did let him in, didn't I?
We don't see him.
Oh, it's
Keep
saying
out the riffraff.
it's saying join, keep out the riffraff. So, okay. So, for those of you that were here last week, do you guys remember me talking about the growler bull that I ran into Saturday night and then went back in Sunday morning, but the hound hunter screwed me up? So Bryce and I went by ourselves. It was funny. The other guys in the group were like, "Hey, are we going back up? Are we going back up?" And Bryce and I were like, "God, I don't know. We hunted our butts." Meanwhile, Bryce and I had plans for just Bryce and I to go, but we were playing it off with the other guys. In fact, they were calling me on Friday, and like, "Hey, have you talked to Bryce?" And I'm like, no, he hooked onto his trailer that Saturday and left camp, and I ain't talked to him since, and I don't know where he's at. And well, are you going back up? And well, yeah, I'm on my way back up now. Where are you going? I don't know. I'm gonna hook onto my trailer where he left it, and I'm gonna pull it some way. So we went back into where Growler was, and I told Bryce, and I said, this is where Growler was hanging out. I said they can either come out of this drainage down this ridge, or they can come down that ridge over there to flood out into the private to feed. I said, I'll let you decide where we set up. And he goes, let's set up on the same side as Growler. So we set up and spread out and started calling. They came down the other ridge. So we had a 50-50 chance. So the next morning, I'm like, we're going right back in there and we're hiking up into that drainage. Now, what was funny was Friday when we were driving up, Bryce was like, we're going back to our old spot. We're going back to our old spot. We're going back to our old spot. So Saturday morning, we got there about 45 minutes before light and just listened in the dark, and we could hear Growler and Mad Bull and One Note all out there. And I'm like, yep, they're there. They're gonna come in. And I said, so we're gonna flood up in here. And so we were sitting in the truck, and all of a sudden, Bryce, there's somebody walking towards our truck, and I look, and you could barely make out a silhouette of somebody. So I get out of the truck and I walk over, and standing right in front of my truck and talking to the guy, and all of a sudden the guy goes, Batiste, what are you doing over here? I thought you hunted this zone. And, it's dark, and I'm kind of squinting and trying to figure out. And then he says his name, and I'm like, oh my God, what are you doing? So, he grew up as a kid. He's late 20s, early 30s now, but he grew up hunting this area. And so I got Bryce out of the truck and introduced him. And this guy started puking information. about this area, about where the elk and how. So remember me talking about the Californians shutting the gates? No, Forest Service shuts the gates on September 15th. And I'm like, holy crap, Bryce, that means those tops with all those rollers, the only way to get up there is walking. And those guys that are camped over there, they've got 20 tree stands. They're not walking. So that's all those tops that nobody's hitting. So, we're talking to my buddy and he's like, well, what were you guys going to do? I said, well, we were going to head up the ridge right here and then get onto the rollers and work. And he goes, I was going to go up this side. I said, well, dude, you've been here since 5. You were here first. So you go up that side. We'll go up the ridge over here that they came down, last night. And he goes, yeah, he goes, do that. And we can bugle back and forth. And then we'll meet kind of at the top. And I said, well, that shouldn't take too long. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, well, this isn't a very big draw. He goes, it looks that way from the mouth. He goes, but this is a wide draw. It goes up and then it wides and there's 3 creeks. He goes, that face back there is probably a mile just across the face. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's a little bit more room back here than I thought. So I said, well, okay. I said, we're going to get our stuff ready. And so he left and we're getting our packs ready. And Bryce has this look on his face. And I go, what's the matter? And he looks at me and he goes, I go, yeah, that guy kind of puked a little bit of information for us about this area. And he goes, is that guy really using that Primos Terminator? I said, well, that's the bugle that he had hanging around his neck. So yeah, it looks like he'd be using that. And I said, but he modified the end of it. It's not the typical bulb like the Terminator has. So we start heading up and this buddy of mine was telling us that he goes, yep, he goes, that ridge you're heading up, he goes, you'll go up and then there's 2 really good trails. There's one on this side and there's one on the backside. The backside just parallels the private property and you can catch bulls coming off the private property up into here. And he goes, just right up in this mouth, there's a wallow. And then up at the head of this creek, there's another wallow. And up here, there's 2 or 3 more wallows. And I mean, he's just puking all this information just about this one draw. And he's telling us about, other areas up here. So Bryce and I start walking up the ridge. And we hear a bull bugle on the right. I'm like, okay, that's the one that we heard last night go down. He's going to come up. And so, we're checking the wind. So we kind of have to wait because if we get up too far, our thermals are going to blow right to him. So we're kind of letting him get up front. And I said, here's this trail that goes to the left that Jake was talking about. So let's just take that. And because then we're on the backside of the ridge, we don't have to worry about thermals and we'll intersect this guy coming in. Well, we hit that trail, roll around the face, and then here's this old road. And we start walking on the road, and then all of a sudden, rub, 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 rub. Elk highways coming off the ridge down to the creek and back up and just elk highways everywhere. And we work into the back, and as soon as we got to the back where the road crosses the creek, it just smacked us in the face with the smell of elk big time. And I'm like, okay, that bull crossed over, came down here. So now we're working. So then we get on that other mile stretch face. And we had bugled a couple of times with Jake going up. And I'll tell you what, as soon as Jake started bugling, Bryce is like, there's no way in heck he's calling on that Primos Terminator because the Primos Terminator does not sound like that. And I said, dude, if you practice with the Primos Terminator, you can sound very, very, very good. I said, trust me, when I was a pro staff for Primos, I forced myself to get really good on that read. And so we get up on that face and start bugling. And the next thing I know, Jake's getting bulls screaming at him with that Primos. I'm not getting anything answering me. And I'm like, that's it. I'm buying a Primos Terminator. Obviously, those elk like that pitch, like that tone. And then next thing I know, I did a series of cow sounds, and Bryce and I are smack dab in the middle of 2 bulls. So Jake's got 2 bulls over on the side he's at. We're in the middle of 2 bulls, and we have cows just going everywhere, like kids on a playground, and we're like looking around, and I'm like, where do I want to set up? He's like, I don't know what to do. So, I mean, there was just so many stinking elk around us. And so, we had two bulls that came down to the little creek, went back, and another one came down. And God, it was crazy because there was so much activity going on and trying to decipher, and of course we're still looking around at all the rubs and on all the trails, and I'm trying to close the distance on these bulls a little bit to get tighter, and then all of a sudden I feel it, tink, tink, and the rain starts.
Hmm.
And as soon as the rain started and turned a little heavier, it's like somebody took a light switch and turned it off. All bugling stopped. All those elk that were running around. In fact, we heard the lead cow do a regathering mew, and then they all shut up and just went. And so we linked back up with Jake up top, and same thing. And then that's when we were talking more, and Jake goes, yeah, there's a bull up here that I've been chasing for 3 years. And I said, oh, really? I said, does he have a really distinct bugle? He's like, why would you ask that? And I said, does he just do this, just this growl? And he goes, you've run into him. I said, yeah, last Saturday I had him at 80 yards. He goes, did you lay eyes on him? I said, no, timber was too thick. I never was able to lay eyes on him. Wait until you see him. I go, why? He goes, that bull's pushing 380, 390. I'm like, no way. I said, well, what about pissed off bull in one note? He goes, one note. Do you mean just that bull that just ooh, and holds it forever? And I said, yeah, that's one note. And he goes, yeah, he's a 330. And I'm like, are you serious? So this draw that we went into, I mean, we found rubs that were 10 and a half, 11 foot tall. There was a tree about that big that he had snapped off about 5 feet off the ground. Just elk everywhere. Bryce and I stayed up there all day long in the rain, just trying to find the little pockets that they disappeared into. And we couldn't find it. Growler and pissed off bull in one note, they stayed out on the private all day because they were working their way back over. And then we heard the hounds again. The hound hunters came down the road, and hound hunters ended up shooting 3-4 times, and that just pushed those guys and kept them out on there on public
Now,
or on private.
hound hunters, that's hunters hunting with dogs and hunting cats.
Bears.
Oh, bears.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Hmm.
but it was kind of funny too, because when Bryce and I were heading out Saturday night back to camp, you could still kind of see treetops, and we got to the cattle guard, and I said, God, I said, that spot right there, you would think if you just bugled out there that you would just hear bulls trickling. Well, Jake was telling me how he stopped there on the way in and cow called and had 12 bulls in that one spot respond to him. So Bryce and I are rolling off. Finally about 6:30, we're like, we're soaked. We're soaked to the bone. We've been trying to dog these guys all day long. We worked the tops and learned a little bit more about the area, and so we decided to roll down and head back to camp and get out of the rain and dry off. And of course, we bumped a couple of bulls bedded down in the buckbrush by the creek. We were choosing our route on the way out as the route that had the least amount of brush because it had been raining so hard, and we didn't want to brush up against anything because we were already so wet. Except for when we got down to the creek, and then it was, of course, a buckbrush bottom that we had to go through the buckbrush. Then we had water just going down the base of our neck, and we got to the truck, and our plan was to stay there Saturday night and then, come home Sunday morning. And I told Bryce when we were in the truck, and I said, dude, it will take us 15 minutes to get the trailer ready to head home. And he's like, you take care of the inside, I'll take care of the outside. I'm sleeping in my own bed tonight. So we got everything ready, got in the truck, and we start heading for home. Now, remember, on the way up, Bryce was, we're going back to where we were. We're going back to where we were. Now, all of a sudden, he's like, we're just really starting to learn this area. I really think that we need to come back next summer and learn it. And I said, really? I said, would that have anything to do with the fact that there's a 380 bull living in this? And he's like, maybe. So But he's right though. Now that we, got into this draw and look at the tops, and plus talking to Jake about how the elk move, where they're at early in the season. And so, because when we were first looking at this draw, Bryce was like, I am not coming back here in this area for this one little area. There is just not enough room. Once we got back in there and he learned how big that was, now all of a sudden he's like, man, we could hunt this from the bottom and go up the left ridge one day, and we can go up the right ridge another day, and we can hit the motorcycle trail on top and hit that cattle trail on the rollers and hunt on that. There's 3 days there, and take the road over here and we can hit those other drainages that he was talking about over there, and there's the motorcycle trail that goes up to that reservoir and that lake there. And I'm like, I thought we were going back to where we have been hunting. I think that we just need to explore this next summer. And so I said, you know what? Why don't we come up here next summer? We'll put trail cameras out in these areas. We'll go to our normal spot. We'll put trail cameras out there, and we will let the trail cameras decide where we're going to go. We won't buy tags until we've checked trail cameras. So yes, so the end of the season, we finally were able to get away from people, get into bugling elk. Um, we did still notice though that it was smaller groups of 3 to 6, 3 to 7. There wasn't large groups. It was those smaller groups spread out, like we talked about in the El Nino, La Nina, with all the feed, and that the elk were going to be spread out. Um, I never did see really peak rut type bugling activity. Um, I mean, we had a couple of days where we had bulls going until 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, but nothing like a bull having hot cows. So, um, Friday the 13th, Liz and I are taking the camper up because her rifle hunt starts the 15th. I have a spike tag that's open until the 14th. So I think they're going to still be bugling pretty good. So I'm going to do a little experiment. I am going to go and donate $35 of my money to Cabela's for a Primos Terminator. I'm snapping the mouthpiece off, and I'm going to plug that into an old Rocky Mountain Hunting Calls Monarch, which is a flexible tube that has a little bit bigger of a bellow end, but and I'm going to do that this weekend so that I can play with the blue snap-on reed and make sure that I can still blow that reed and mouthpiece. But I'm going to do a little bit of testing on Liz's hunt with the old Primos, because it hits a pitch like nothing else. And I don't know. I'm just kind of curious. Plus I want to play with it again. So last week I was asked if I regretted making the decision to hunt the new area. And I said last week, no. It was a good learning experience, and we learned a lot about, some areas. The area that we were hunting at first, we're not giving up on that area as far as recreating, because there's a lot of motorcycle trails that go into high mountain lakes that are chock full of Arctic grayling and brook trout and rainbow trout. So we will go camping up there during the summer and fish. As far as hunting up in that area, I will probably never ever in my life go back up into those areas. So that we were at the first. The other thing is, it's kind of the slogan that I kept telling those guys as we were out each day. If we can't hear them, we ain't in them. We need to keep moving until we can hear them. And so that's kind of, if you're ever going into a new area, just keep moving until you get into them. You can work pockets, but don't spend a week hunting a same pocket where you're not hearing bugles or not seeing elk. If you have not heard elk or seen elk within a day or two, move on. Go to the next canyon. Go 20 miles down the road. Go a different direction. But just move. And if you keep moving every couple of days, because that's kind of what we did. Now, mind you, this unit that we're in, it's a very large elk zone. There is a lot of ground to cover. And that was one of the hard parts that we had was, okay, where are we moving to? Where are we going to go? And what's funny is we ended up in the place that we were camping this summer and riding the motorcycle trail to set the trail cameras. And Bryce's wife and my wife were both very quick to tell us, well, we thought that's why you guys were camping up there that this summer and riding and putting those trail cameras because that's where you were going to hunt. Maybe you guys should have started there instead of wasting all other time where you did. So, so we have decided that our wives are much wiser than we are when it comes to elk hunting. So we are going to let them tell us where to go and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So,
Hey, Michael,
yes.
got a question for you.
Uh-huh.
The first day of the hunt, two deer hunters spotted a herd of elk that they said must have numbered about 300.
Okay.
They counted 11 bulls in it. They just hadn't broken up yet. Is that because it's just still summertime to them and they're just hanging around?
You know, that could have been a large group of cows and calves in a nursery group, and some of the bulls were younger bulls that, still had not really broken off in the bachelor groups yet. And so yeah, that herd may not have been broken up yet with the big boys coming down, especially early in the season, you'll see stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be that, some of the younger bulls went down to start kind of gathering some cows and trying to split them off, and they're not that good at it yet. And
Mm-hmm.
and it could be that those, then, after a few days, those younger bulls split a few cows out and pushed them up, and then the older bulls were waiting for those younger bulls to push the cows up, and then took them away from them. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so,
Okay.
but yeah, early in the season, you can see that a lot of times. So you'll see a good number of cows and calves and younger bulls together. They're still kind of in that nursery group.
Yeah,
So
I saw that one time up by Flagstaff. There must have been 300, 400 elk in the herd. Bulls were fighting, and they're out in a huge meadow. And I stepped on a stick, and the cows go. The bulls stopped and watched the cows. The cows run. Bulls are like, I guess we better go too.
yeah. No, and depending on depending on the year, you can get those large groups, especially in drier years when the feed's concentrated. That's when you really get large herd numbers. Larry, what was the vegetation like where you were? Was it really green and feed all over, or was feed kind of isolated?
It was a lot of feed everywhere, but it's a big burn area. There'd been a lot of burn area, so it concentrated the bears and the elk in different areas, especially the bears looking for acorns.
Yep.
The elk in the burn areas had good grasses to feed on from the burn, so they were more dispersed than the bears. The bears were pretty concentrated in the acorn scrub brush.
Okay. Okay. So. So yeah, all in all, I mean, calling it a successful year. Learned a lot about the area. Um, Still looking back, should I have shot the cow at 15 yards that Saturday morning? Maybe. But I can head up on the 13th and I can hammer a spike on the 14th and Liz can get her bull on the 15th and we can come home that Sunday the 15th with two bulls. I mean, there's still opportunities. Um, my tag also offers a late season cow hunt in
Short
November with
range.
short range weapons. So, um,
Cool.
but yeah, good things learned. I know one of the things that I said, I think it was last week or week before, um, instead of just on a whim deciding to go hunt a new area, maybe push it off a year and do a little more research and scouting in the area before you decide to plunge headfirst in and go hunt it. I I mean we got into some beautiful country, and definitely learned a lot about that area, and There was elk there. I mean, we did get into some, but man, there's a lot of people. I
Sometimes boot first is more interesting than mouse first.
and we kind of talked about that. I'm like, what did we do before we had on X or Google Earth or any of that stuff? And in fact, we were talking about that one day. We were on the mountainside, and here we are looking at our phones, and oh, where are we going to go, and this and that. And I put my phone away, and they were like, what are you doing? And I'm like, we have come to rely so much on onX and technology instead of just looking up at the mountain and reading a mountain. So mountain skills are diminishing. And I said, you know what, why don't we just put the phone away and read the mountain? Take a look at the terrain, take a look at the trees, take a look at the topography, go with what we know and go, okay, elk are going to be in this area, or they're going to go there, or hey, there's a saddle, we need to head to that saddle, we'll probably hit an elk trail, then we can hit that elk trail and let the elk trail lead us to where the elk are. And that's a little bit what we did on Saturday, was just put that phone away and let the sign lead us. So definitely something I think next year going to get back to, especially if we go back into this area. It's just going to leave the phone in the pocket and just let the elk trails and the topography lead us to the elk. Now, mind you, there's a lot of private ground where we're at, so we might have to check it once in a while and make sure we are on, because we might cross a line, not know it, and go, holy crap, there's elk all over the place here. Well, yeah, that's because we're a half mile into private property.
Yep.
So,
So
but yeah,
I got a question.
go for it, Joel.
Uh, I went the last 2 days with my brother-in-law up to Wyoming. He had a tag for the Medicine Bow Range, is where it was at, and we got into elk opening, not opening morning, but basically the first day we were in there. I had a bull come out, and we tried to play him for about we were probably within 150 yards, just couldn't see him. And we tried to do a scenario with him for about 35 minutes, and he just would not come any closer. And so we got over this meadow, and we just let off a couple of cow calls, and he jumped into the meadow like not even 3 seconds after I got off the call. And he stops and he's staring at us, and of course he's about 80 yards away, standing straight on to us. Well, we never really spooked him hard, but he went up on the hill. He barked once, so I barked right back at him. And all he did after that, he did bugle a couple more times, but he would just growl at us. He would not bugle, he would just growl. And I could not for the life of me get him to come back down the hill. What would you do in that circumstance?
So I would try to go. I would go silent and try to loop around. Try to get on his side of the meadow if I could, and get in a little closer, get in a little tighter to him. It's kind of tough once they start barking, and also with that growl too. I mean, that's two instances where he's asking you to present yourself. What are you? Show yourself to me. So yeah, in that scenario, would go quiet and try to loop around, maybe come in from a different angle. What I've done in that case too is switch to a different reed that has a little different tone pattern to it, just to make it appear that it's a different group of elk coming in from a different direction.
Okay. Yeah, it was a pretty cool experience, but then the next day we thought we pressured him pretty hard because we bumped him like 3 or 4 times in the area. So we decided to go check out this other area, long ways away. There was a sign, but we could not get anything to make a sound over there. And then we get back, and we bump a cow and a calf after doing a calling scenario about 45 minutes. And I don't know if she was coming into me or we just bumped them. Then we go do a calling scenario, didn't hear nothing, get into these great big meadows, and it started lightning and thundering on us, and it started raining. So we're like, we got to get out of the meadows. And we hear this bugle, and he's a long ways off, so we start chasing it because it's the last day. We're got nothing better. Lose it and start heading back to the truck. And at 7:12, I let off a bugle about 7:10, and legal sundown 7:12. So we got half an hour. And all of a sudden we have 3 or 4 bulls just light up the valley, and they would not shut up. We got in on one, and we didn't realize where he was at, and he come out, and my brother-in-law seen him, but I didn't see him, so I stepped a couple more steps and it bumped him out of the meadow, and he just started barking at us like crazy. So I tried doing the same thing and going the other direction because I did not have any light. I got him to come to the edge of the meadow, but we could not see him. Have you ever had something like that?
Was this last weekend?
Yeah, it was Saturday.
Full moon. So,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that I was, I knew we were going to be battling a full moon last weekend, and so I was like, we're probably going to get movement late at the end of the day, and they're going to head to bed early, but midday madness is going to be pretty good, and that's kind of what we were banking on, was midday madness. So yeah, Friday night they did not start making noise and light up, even though there was a cloud cover. They did not start lighting up until, I mean, probably 15, 20 minutes before dark. So, I mean, it was definitely past, shooting time. But as soon as it's kind of funny in that area, once growler gets going, everybody joins the party and gets going. So, and it's almost like trying to pull a bugle out of them before growler says anything. It's like they're like, no, dad told us that we can't talk to strangers. And oh, dad's talking to a stranger. Hi, how you doing? Yeah, how long you been here? Where you from? Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah, hey, let's be buddies. And it was hilarious. Growler went, and then they all just, I mean, one note probably cracked off, I mean, a dozen bugles in a 2 minute span. It's like he finally, it's like a kid that sat in church and couldn't talk, and then as soon as he got in the car, he talked nonstop all the way home. And that's how one note was. Dad finally gave him the okay to talk, and man, he was going to take advantage of it, and he just lit up. So, but no, you'll have areas like that. I've seen areas before that nothing will talk until a certain bull does, and then they all light up. I've had another area that I hunted one time that they would not bugle until the sun hit high enough that sunlight hit the ground on that area where they were at, and then all of a sudden, as soon as sunlight hit the ground, man, they would light up and start bugling. So, but yeah, that one, even with the cloud cover, I mean, we still noticed that, Friday night it was still pretty dang light out. It wasn't a real thick cloud cover. It still did let quite a bit of light in. Um, but they were going pretty good Saturday morning. Of course, like I said, we were there quite a while before, light, so we were able to listen. Our plan was to listen in position and move up, even though we had that one ridge stuck in our head that we wanted to go up it. And now, of course, now that we saw how fast Jake made it to the top, now we're like, we think he sent us on the long route. He sent us on the yellow brick road to get to Oz, and he took the hot air balloon. So
Yep.
I guess that's the advantage of hunting an area for 20, 25 years. You know the escalator to the top to get up to where those guys are. But now we know it too. So but yeah,
I
happy.
haven't found an escalator yet.
You haven't? It's all right.
No.
I'm still looking for a current bush out there to recharge my phone. So But anyways, Greg, how'd you guys end up?
There were 5 of us. We ended up with 1 elk.
The cow you took?
Yes. A lot of feed. There was
Yeah.
feed everywhere. We had a lot of rain. There was water everywhere. The wallows weren't being used. It was pretty cool, probably 50s, 60s highs. It got down to upper 20s sometimes at night. But we didn't see groups of more than like 3, 4, or 5.
Nope.
Yeah, I watched your episode here a couple days ago, the one I missed, which you talked about the smaller groups and stuff, and that was exactly what we saw.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because Jay that jumped on late, he was hunting over in your area, and yeah, we were talking about that, and he said that's what he was seeing on his trail cameras out there. It'd be 2 or 3 cows, and then the bull would be trailing behind, and that was it. Those were the groups that he was seeing.
and
So
we put a camera over the carcass after we left and went back in 2 weeks later and pulled it out.
get a grizzly on camera.
We got there were probably 7 different grizzlies in on that in a week and a half.
Whoa.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So it was impressive.
Yeah, and that's the reason I have never been back over to that side of the state and hunt after I did it that one time.
Yeah, there were even on all the other cameras that we had saw lots of grizzly back and forth, but there were a lot of uh, carcasses out and about from the hunters.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was a big bear season for us.
Jay was saying that saw a lot more grizzlies this year over there.
So my question is, they say when there's a shooting or a bear encounter and stuff, and that Fish and Game comes in and does their inspection and investigation, and that they say it was justified. People use bear spray. Some people use guns. A lot of it, if they use guns to dispatch the bear during the encounter, do Fish and Game look at the expiration date on the bear spray? Is that something that they say, well, this is outdated, so that's why it didn't work, and you chose the gun? That was one of our conversations, and
They
I had no idea.
they can. I mean, obviously, they want you to use non-lethal methods first, just because of the federal protection. But they also understand too that you have a right to defend your life. So
Right.
and I mean grizzlies can run up to what, 35 miles an hour, 40 miles an
I don't
hour.
want to find out how fast.
They can cover ground in a hurry, and it's kind of one of those things that if you feel that you're in a situation that you can't get out of, and that's your only course. I mean, I don't know, me personally, I would defend my life to the
Right.
fullest extent, and I'll face the consequences and the conversations and questions
Yeah.
later. I mean, it's always one of those things. It's like, you weren't there. You weren't standing in my shoes in that situation. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you're trying to take evidence and stories and piece it together to come up with your own conclusion of events, but you weren't there. I guess maybe we just need to start wearing body cams. Or you guys do over in that. I don't have to because I don't have those bears in my area. So just invest in some body cam. That way,
Body
it's
cams,
it's
there we
just
go.
justifiable. Yeah. Just make sure you don't reach up and turn it off before the shooting because that looks a little suspicious. So
another thing you gotta worry about that bear spray is the wind right? Because you
yeah.
hit that spray and it blows you in the face. I don't know if anybody's ever been hit in the face with bear spray. I have. You are gonna be
It's not fun.
Well, that bear spray, if it blows it in
God.
your face, I mean
Well,
that's just a little seasoning for the bear. It's
Yeah.
gonna.
my point. You were
Yeah.
hosed, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So Now,
so we took a couple of cans of outdated bear spray. I've never discharged a can. And so it was kind of interesting to discharge it. It didn't go as far as I thought. And then I wondered, is that because it was outdated or,
could be.
yeah. But
Yeah, I
other than
mean,
that,
it's still, I think, what, 30 feet, 25 feet?
it didn't go that far. It maybe
Well,
went
yeah,
15, 12,
uh,
15 feet, which we go, that there's no decision in that space to switch to a pistol or
no, that's
yeah,
why you just pull both
spray the
and
rest of it in your face.
fire both, and yeah,
Yeah.
Shoot your friend in the knee.
exactly. Yeah, you don't have to outrun the bear. You just got to outrun your hunting partner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
sprayed it in a tent one time into my sleeping bag on accident.
Sprayed it on the inside of your sleeping bag?
Yeah, I tripped when I was getting into the tent and I had it in my hand and I tripped
Oh,
right into my sleeping bag and freaking just sprayed my inside of my sleeping bag one night.
How was that
That
sleeping
wasn't
that
fun.
night?
Luckily, I had a second sleeping bag,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I bet you never do that again, huh?
but it wasn't near as warm.
Wow,
So
Ooh.
crazy.
All you had to do was roll in the original. It'd have warmed you right up.
Yeah.
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
well, this year I practiced 40-yard shots and I was in a spot that I was guessing 40, 42 on the elk. It was an embarrassing shot that turned out positive. Uh, yeah, she jumped the string, nothing flat, in a very narrow opening, and I hit that white spot right on the back of the elk,
Oh,
and it
But
severed the.
there's also something that runs right along that
Yeah,
line, which he
yeah,
did
and
hit.
it severed the femoral artery,
She didn't
and
go
it
very far, did she?
no, and it cracked the hip.
Yeah, I
The
remember you
chisel
saying
point
that, but
cracked that hip.
yeah,
Yeah, she lived about 25 yards.
I've seen one other bull that got shot in that same location and severed the femoral artery, and I want to say that that bull was down. I mean, 15 seconds, 12
Yeah.
seconds. I mean, fast, very fast. It's not a very high percentage shot. I wouldn't recommend focusing on that or trying to hit that. So
Mhm.
I
That
know
wasn't my target. Yeah.
that's why I said when you sent me that picture, and I was like, um, shot looks a little far back.
Thought the head was on the other side. Yeah.
But then when you sent the video, then it made sense.
Yeah. I don't know if you want if you're more than welcome to play that for these guys.
It's on my phone, so
Yeah.
it won't play on this one. But
That's
all
oh,
right,
buddy.
so
this is
where are we at schedule wise as far as normal Wapiti Wednesday Q&As? Oh, okay. Next Wednesday, the 11th, is the normal scheduled live Q&A. So next Wednesday, we'll get back into normal live Q&As. So if you guys have any topics you want covered, anything that you ran into this year or anything like that, we will get going. Also, something new that once I get done with Liz's hunt, probably in November, I'm going to start doing some 30-day challenges. So at first, the 30-day challenges are going to be for brand new callers that are not Elk Calling Academy members. It's kind of a drive to get some more members in the online course with us, but also too, so the first one is a 30-day challenge getting started, to where in that 30 days it's going to start with a free webinar. So if you have people that want to learn or get started, just tell them, follow the Facebook page or Instagram page, because I will make announcements. It's going to start with a free webinar that will talk about fit and diaphragm reads, diaphragm placement, the high to low, low to high, and that's going to be their 30-day challenge. And I may do it to ask people to submit a video when they start and submit a video at the end of 30 days, and we might do some giveaways for the most improved. Also gonna do a 30-day challenge that's gonna be a 30-day challenge to better chuckling that we're gonna focus on chuckling. So we're gonna have some 30-day challenges. The intent also is to get people started practicing now instead of waiting 2 weeks before the season. So that way they can roll into season all tuned up and ready to go. So that's kind of on the docket coming up. Also, I think after the first of the year, have had a lot of people asking, so I'm going to bring some more merchandise in. I will be bringing in some more of the ECA t-shirts, and there also is a lightweight green hoodie that it has the full-blown Elk Calling Academy on the front, and on the back it's just an elk silhouette, which happens to be the elk from the original Elk Calling Academy logo. Remember the circle with that elk silhouette in the middle? It's going to be that bull on the back. Probably going to be doing a pre-sale for that one. So, and I'm going to bring back the original ECA right on the side with the stitched ECA, just the icon. So after the first of the year, we'll have some more merchandise in because a lot of people have been busting my chops about shirts and hats and sweatshirts and beanies and all this stuff. So,
Well, to your benefit, all the things that you talked about this summer in the sessions and stuff, pretty much dead on. So that I kept experiencing that out in the field. So thank you, thank you.
oh, not a problem. Not a problem. And that's what's funny is I think that's one reason why we as a group didn't get frustrated this year, where we talked to a lot of people and they were just frustrated beyond means. And we were like, we were expecting this. This is exactly the kind of season that we anticipated. So now the nice thing is I'll make a forecast for next season right now is, now that we're back in the El Nino, which, obviously I'm going to wait and see how the winter plays out, but next summer is going to be drier, which means you're going to have food concentrated more, which means you're going to have larger groups. And when you have those larger groups, you have a lot more bugling activity because you have a lot more competition for cows. So that is my preseason prediction for the 2024 elk season, but we will recircle and reconvene later in the summer, and I will make my official prognosis. So, all right, guys.
Hey, I won't be here next week. I'm on vacation. So I'll see you guys.
We will try to survive without you. Where are you going?
Yeah, I go. So do what you got to do to get muddle through this yourself.
Okay. Hopefully, hopefully I will remember without you which buttons to push and how to do this. At least this week I got okay, who clicked the join now button? Who clicked the button on the email to join this week?
I did.
Join the live discussion.
I didn't
did.
trust it. I tried the actual link.
You trusted the gold. See, last week I forgot to update the link to the button, so it just took you into a waiting room. And so I started getting text messages, and so people had to click the gold link up in the body of the email instead of the button on the bottom. So I made for sure this morning that I updated both. So I was like, okay, we're doing better this week because I updated both the link and the button. So we're already doing better than we did last week. So
Good job. Mhm.
I'll get this stuff figured out one of these days. I mean, I haven't been doing it that long. So, all right, guys, we're gonna sign off. We're gonna close it off. So as always, keep calling, keep practicing. More importantly, though, have fun. And we will see you guys next week as we get back into the normal program of Wapiti Wednesday live Q&As. So I appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. Have a
Take
great week, and we'll see
Thanks
you
for your
guys next
help.
Wednesday.
Good
So,
night, guys.
Jim,
See
have a
you
great
guys.
vacation.
Thank you.
Adios.
Hey, Michael, real
Yeah.
quick, did those reeds get mailed out?
I sent him to Mark. So I sent him your address, and he said not a problem. They'd get him out. You are asking an elk company to send out elk calls during elk season, and especially when
Fair
they're
enough.
especially when they live in Colorado and they have an abundance of opportunities with elk seasons in Colorado. So, but yeah, I popped him a message about giving him feedback on all the reads that we field tested. So I'll remind him again.
Cool, thanks.
So, all right, see you guys.
Night.